Don't freeze.
I never freeze.
Okay, it's rap pack to my pulse flat. We keep it real, no false rap. I got 4 cars and they all black. Got 4 bras and they all that. We call that ballin'. Doing this is my calling. Flow is so appalling. My phone off and she calling. I'm like, yeah.
What's going on, y'all? And welcome back to Nth-Level Entertainment, the most awesome series, comic book, and movie-related YouTube channel in South Africa. I am your host, Z the Entertainer, and today we're doing a non-spoiler review to Black Panther. For the very first time, I can say this movie met every single expectation I had to the T, and even more in some ways. It was a fantastic film. It was well shot. It's yet another very unique addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Ever since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Ant-Man, Spider-Man Homecoming, especially Doctor Strange, and most recently Thor Ragnarok. Marvel seems to continue to take chances with their films and their source material and actually present it in different ways, introduce new and interesting topics, and basically break boundaries and comfort zones as far as what their fans and viewers are used to. So Black Panther is obviously the standalone movie for the Black Panther character and basically follows events from Captain America Civil War. According to what Kevin Feige has said in an interview, apparently Black Panther actually takes place about 2 weeks after the event of Captain America Civil War. Now, this was a great movie in that now we finally explore Black Panther's supporting cast because we now actually finally go to Wakanda and actually see it. We've heard it being mentioned in Avengers Age of Ultron. That was the very first time it was mentioned by Bruce Banner, no less. We saw Ulysses Claw in that same movie, also introduce a bit of a stronger connection to Wakanda. And we also, and it was also the introduction of vibranium, the precious metal that Wakanda is very famous for. And then we finally saw the character himself in Captain America Civil War. This time around, we see him in his home turf, basically still dealing with the death of his father from the events of Captain America Civil War, and now dealing with the fact that he now has to ascend to the role of king and actually rule the country. So it was a great take on that story. Apparently, there are several comic book storylines that it's actually adapted from. Bits and pieces of them were taken and put together to make the screenplay that we actually got to see in the film. Unfortunately, I am not very familiar with the character of Black Panther as much as I am with the other mainstream Marvel superheroes. I only was properly introduced to the character when I saw Ultimate Avengers 2, Rise of the Black Panther, one of the Lionsgate animated Marvel films that came out, I think, around 2003, if I'm not mistaken. After that, I didn't follow up much on him or read up on his comics or anything like that. So I do still need to do that. But watching this movie, it was a beautiful introduction to the character. Even without knowing his backstory, you will thoroughly enjoy beholding this gem of cinematic brilliance that was Black Panther. So as I said, we now see him in Wakanda. We see more of the actual world. We see how vibranium has actually made Wakanda the most technological advanced nation in the world. And the blend between Africanism and high-tech society was balanced so beautifully visually in this movie. When you see it, you actually feel very much like it's an African film based on the undertones and what they choose to show you in the film and the costumes and everything like that. But at the same time, there is enough spectacle, enough coolness, enough cool factor, and enough of the kind of dialogue you would expect from superheroes, for you to actually feel that you are actually watching a superhero movie. So in essence, you felt like you were watching an African superhero movie. Ryan Coogler did a great job bringing this to the screen and balancing those two nuances. So we get to see more of Black Panther's supporting cast. We meet his mother, played by Angela Bassett. We get to see his sister, Shuri, who was played brilliantly by the actress that played her. I forget her name. We also see Nakia, who apparently is an ex-girlfriend of Black Panther, and we see them deal, with the the sexual tension and awkwardness between them throughout the film as well. She is apparently a spy for Wakanda. Now, I'm not going to give too much of the details away in this film, but all I can say is that there was a fantastic job done by the entire cast as far as acting goes. They played their roles well. The character development of each character was handled beautifully as well. We explore a lot more as to the kind of relationships that T'Challa has with people in Wakanda, both as king and also in the role that he plays within his family as well. I love the dynamic between him and his sister. It is awesome. She's one of the characters that I'd love to see interact with characters like Tony Stark or Spider-Man in future MCU properties. We also get to see Everett Ross come back in the same role he was playing in Captain America Civil War, and it's fleshed out a bit more in this movie, and he actually sort of develops an interesting relationship to Black Panther and the city of Wakanda as the film develops. We also see Eric Killmonger, who I think after seeing this movie, some would argue that he's the best MCU villain to date, because as we've seen in previous MCU movies, they've always had the problem of the villain being a bit bland, not having enough character depth or motivation for him to be relatable enough for the viewers to care about him. A lot of MCU fans and viewers have complained a lot about this. The only one who would stand out up until now was Loki from the Thor and Avengers movies. I think Eric Killmonger did justice to what a Marvel villain should be in the MCU. Eric B. Jordan did a fantastic job playing the character. We also get to see the Dora Milaje, who are basically a secret service kind of thing for the King of Wakanda, aka the Black Panther. And we also get to see, this whole isolationist thing that Wakanda has, that has been maintained by everyone who's ruled the country before T'Challa took the throne. And how they actually maintain it. They don't want the world's problems. They don't want influence from Western culture to dilute the traditions and values that Wakanda holds dear to them. And we see how they actually, deal with that and how they relate to the rest of the world, and how they protect their most precious resource, which makes them such a formidable nation, and keep it within the borders of Wakanda, and how they actually keep out of sight of the rest of the world is also quite a cool thing that they show in this movie. The only gripe that I have with this movie is, the final action sequence. The final action sequence. We see a lot of CGI representation of the characters that are taking part in that sequence, and while the CGI is done quite well, it's actually hard not to notice the difference, when they cut to the live action versions, between the live action versions and the CGI counterparts. It's not well done enough for us not to see that difference, for it to be seamless. But other than that, I think it was a fantastic film. It touched on a lot of interesting topics as well. It's different from any other MCU film because this is about a king ascending to the throne. I mean, we had that in a way with the Thor movies because he's the Prince of Asgard, but with this one it was so much more about royalty and the politics that are involved and other people trying to seize power while there is unrest due to T'Challa's father's death. I mean, people know about it and they now know that the throne is vulnerable, so that is explored a lot as well. And we also get to see the topics of politics and racism are very well handled, and dare I say it, even black consciousness to a certain degree, in a comic book movie. It was a great thing to see that. I mean, yeah, Captain America Civil War did touch on the concepts of politics, but I think it's handled into a much deeper level in Black Panther. We also, I mean, I was saying earlier how it's one of those movies that actually took risks as far as the MCU is concerned, based on what we've seen before. Not only we know it's about an African superhero, but the entire production of the movie, from pre-production to post-production, was so Africanized in that the director was an African American person. The entire cast was 90% African. The soundtrack was curated, sorry, by Kendrick Lamar. And we even have some South African artists who are in the track listing as well, which is a great thing for us South Africans to know, you know. And it seems that the official language spoken in Wakanda is Xhosa, which is actually a real African language found right here in South Africa. It was such another great thing for us South African viewers to actually see in this movie, and to also see that they made, you know, the proper effort to actually speak the language, and not just speak some arbitrary African language and string it together and pass it off as something else. That was a great thing for us to see, you know, the authenticity and how it was handled. So it was a great film. You know, the action sequences were beautiful. You know, there was enough spectacle and cool factor for you to not forget that you're watching a comic book movie. But it was so African at the same time that you were essentially watching an African superhero comic book movie. So, you know, aside from the CGI that I was able to notice the fault of in the end of the movie, this was a great watch. I give this movie 9 vibranium mounds out of 10. It was, you know, it was a fantastic watch. Anyone who hasn't seen it before, I highly recommend that you watch it. It's good enough for you to enjoy even knowing nothing about comic books or the character itself. But if you do want to prepare for it, I would say if you don't have much time, just watch Avengers Age of Ultron and Captain America Civil War to prepare for this movie. Otherwise, I would say binge the entire MCU if you have that much time. So that's it from you guys. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the movie. And if you enjoyed this review, please click on the thumbs up icon and leave us a like. And if you'd like to see more from Nth-Level Entertainment, please click subscribe. And be sure to click the bell icon to be notified every time we drop new content on this channel. Otherwise, guys, I've been Z the Entertainer. And once again, thanks for spending your time with me. Take care of each other. Stay awesome to infinity and beyond.
Hey guys, thanks a lot. If you want to see some more from us, click here or click here.